Well, we just had the election, and there's a lot of happy people out there, and there's a lot of people who are not too happy. And I mean, really, really not too happy. And they're kind of stunned. They don't understand what happened. And quite frankly, so was I. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't come in, into this week thinking that Trump was just going to kick butt. In fact, I was pretty well convinced he was going to lose and lose big. And I was wrong. Well, what happened? Well, I vastly, vastly underestimated, or maybe I should say overestimated, the impact of his callousness had on the population. And what I mean by that is Trump is pretty rough around the edges. He says a lot of things that could be construed as being very mean and unpolished. And I kind of felt that that was going to sink him. Keep in mind, he was elected in 2016, but he lost in 2020. And I'm thinking to myself, well, how is he going to win if he's lost in 2020? I mean, how is he going to gain extra votes? And I just didn't see it. Never mind that it looks like some of those votes may not be real. And at the time, and I've said this publicly many times on not TikTok, I don't do TikTok, but on Twitter and on my YouTube videos, that I never bought into the whole the election was stolen thing. But now I'm not so sure. I mean, looking at the actual tallies, I myself am a little mystified at how Biden got so many extra votes in 2020, but I'm not sure. However, what is clear is that the number of votes is pretty consistent between 2012 and 2016. 2020 looks like the real anomaly, not 2024. So all those people out there claiming, well, Trump may have stole the election, you're election deniers. And the last time I heard, that was like treason. I mean, that was tantamount to the destruction of democracy to even say such a thing. But now I guess it's okay. At any rate, I also have to understand, I want to make sure that we have an understanding here. The election didn't go in the way of a lot of people, and they're hurt over it. And as much as I like to gloat over winnings, I don't think it's appropriate here, except for those very few people who just went, absolutely crazy over the results. But, when you have a politician that you really love and they lose, it hurts. And I don't think it's really a good idea to rub it in. We didn't like it when they rubbed it in 2020, and I don't like the idea of rubbing it in 2024. However, some people did beg for it, and I don't have any sympathies for them at all. Well, tonight, what we're going to talk about is the Hispanic vote. And the reason why I wanted to do this video was because I saw in Joy Reid especially a complete misunderstanding of demographics and people by the Democratic Party. Some of it rooted in their own racism. Okay, so I'm watching Joy Reid just go off. We'll play that video here in a moment. And I'm thinking to myself, man, does she have it all wrong? She just doesn't understand people. And I started thinking, that's kind of the Democratic Party as a whole, and it kind of explains why they lost so big here. So let's go ahead and we'll start it off with Joy Reid and her take on what went wrong.
To close his repulsive campaign by dropping the B word on Nancy Pelosi. The breakdown by education was stark. Harris won 57% of white women with college degrees and lost 63% of white women without them. It was also men. Trump won every age group of men, including 60% of Gen X men and 6 in 10 white men. Also Latino men, who despite the utter disrespect shown by Trump and his promise to deport some of your mixed status families, most of them voted in a 55% majority to make the deportations happen. Y'all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke. And
All right. And there you go. There's the problem. She looks at the Hispanic vote and she says, you voted against your self-interest, your best interests. And so the message they're sending is that if you're Latino and you vote for somebody who's into mass deportations, you're voting against your best interests. And that makes no sense at all. And I've said this before many, many times. If you go into like California's Central Valley, all right, and you go into like into Tulare County, let's say in Tulare, and you have a Hispanic man who is a barber. Now, he may have come in under Reagan as an illegal and then was given amnesty or whatever, or he may have come over legally. But he's, let's say, been in the country for a long time. He's a legal resident, and he has a barber shop, and he's trying to make money to put his kids through school. Mass deportation is not even in his wheelhouse. And the idea here is that if you're Mexican, then you must be illegal, or you must have family members who are illegal. That's what she's saying. But that is not the case. I've known Hispanic, I'm half Hispanic myself, and but I was raised in an Okie culture, so I'm not going to lie to you and claim that I was raised in a Hispanic culture. I wasn't. I was raised in a white boy environment. But I know Hispanics very well. I've worked with them for many, many years. I've worked with them in government. I've worked with them in helping set up governmental assistance for businesses in the Central Valley of California. And I've got to know them pretty well. And they really do not look at the illegals that are coming across the border as their brethren. And let me give you an example. In one California community, they had to build another school. And the reason why was because of the huge influxes of undocumented students, kids coming across, and their regular school was just not big enough. And so they went in and they had to build a bigger school. Now, California has the Office of Public School Construction. And so you can get money from the state to build a new school. Now, typically, if I recall, it was like a 50% match. So you had to come up with half the money, and they would actually match up with 50%. But you had to get in line, and you had to wait, and you might not get it. If you have a large influx of undocumented students for whatever, that is a massive expense. You're going to have to be building a new school at some point. And again, the state is only going to pony up about half of it. So you're talking millions of dollars you're going to have to spend for these students. And so this is a financial drain on your district. Furthermore, these bilingual teachers that you have to hire are expensive. And so you're ponying up a lot of money for bilingual instruction that you wouldn't have to have if all of your students spoke English. So there is a harm here. And I'm not saying that necessarily means that you shouldn't allow undocumented students into your district. I'm just saying, if you're going to do that, you have to recognize that this is going to get expensive. So what happens is that a businessman who owns the local restaurant or the barber shop is going to have to be paying extra in taxes. They're going to have to try to do a bond of some sort. And so they're going to have to go around and try to raise money through a bond, which means that this businessman's property taxes are going to go up. So how interested is he going to be in doing this? The reason why this is important is that the barber, who's almost certainly Hispanic, if he's living in Tulare, doesn't look upon these people coming across the border as his brethren. He sees them as a drain on his finances. And one of the problems that Democrats have is that they take all Hispanics and they lump them together, and they think that because they're all Hispanic, that they must share common concerns, common attitudes towards certain political, bills and policies and stuff, and they don't. The fairly well-to-do or even blue-collar Hispanic who's here legally does not share much at all in terms of the Hispanics that are coming across the border illegally. And so if you try to reach the Hispanic population, keep in mind, those people who own restaurants and stuff, those are voters. The ones coming over across the border are not, although California is trying to change that, right? Good luck with that. The Democratic Party is trying to reach the Hispanic voting population by making a claim that if you put Trump in, he's going to hurt those who are coming over illegally. And a lot of the Hispanic population say, hey, I'm fine with that. Don't believe me? Watch this. These are the percentages of the Hispanic populations that are Hispanic. Oh, well, this is the percentage of the population that is Hispanic. And obviously, you can tell that along this southern border, you have large numbers of very heavy Hispanic counties. Obviously, I mean, you have the border here, right? And so you're going to get large Hispanic populations here. Now, you would think, well, with Trump trying to deport all of these Hispanics all along here, this is going to be solid Democrat. They're going to stand up for their brethren and say, no, no, no. These are our homeland people. We want to look out for them. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. Let's go to Starr County. Starr County is right here, and it is 98% Hispanic. Think about that. There are essentially no white people living here. I mean, the number of white people that are living in this county can probably be counted on two hands. A little bit of an exaggeration, but like 99% Hispanic. Pretty much everybody is Hispanic, right? Let's go to a news site here.
Last night's election saw big shifts with Latino voters. According to the exit polls from CNN, 45% of Latinos voted for Trump nationally. Huge difference from 2020, when back then it was 65% of Latinos who voted for Joe Biden.
We saw the same thing here in Texas, especially along the border. Erica Hernandez gives us a closer look at the numbers and what some Latino voters in Bexar County have to say.
Just because you happen to be Latino doesn't mean you're going to vote Democratic.
And that is exactly what happened in the elections last night. Political science chair from UTSA, John Taylor, says the Latino vote was big for President Donald Trump's win.
Latinos tend to be more socially conservative. Democrats need to understand that. So if you're going to be trying to engage younger men, Latinos in particular, you've got to understand about how you're going to message and actually address immigration and, yes, even things like transgendered issues, which obviously played a role.
Take a look at the numbers here in Texas. Compared to 2020, the major Texas counties stayed blue, but Trump dominated the middle counties. But even in Bexar County, Harris performed 4 points less than Biden did in 2020. Now to the border. Most of those counties turned red, making the border no longer blue.
People don't understand how significant this is. The county that stood out to me the most was Starr County, a county that had never voted for a Republican in its roughly 140 years as it exists as a county.
And we spoke to many of those Latino male voters while we were out and about today, and all of them saying they voted for Trump mostly because of the economy.
I think he'll be a better president than Harris.
What are you hoping you see change as the next 4 years kind of roll on?
Inflation plus housing for people. The housing right now, the rent is real high.
The more money in your pocket, the better. If you don't have any money, I mean, everybody struggled. So these past 4 years have been bad.
He's the only one that does what he says that he's going to do.
As for the future, Taylor believes now more than ever, Democrats need to work harder at understanding what the Latino voter wants.
They got to understand to address those issues that particularly that resonate with Latino voters, especially pocketbook issues and social issues.
Erica Hernandez, KSAT 12 News.
Okay. Think about this. This is a county that's like 98% Hispanic. And according to the Democrats, well, I mean, they're just going to vote overwhelmingly Democrat because Trump is all for this mass deportation. And the people that are going to be deported are these Hispanic families' brethren. Gee, I think there's something wrong with that message. And of course there is. As I said before, the Hispanics in Starr County don't look at the illegal aliens as their brethren at all. They look upon them as people who are going to come into their county and drain their resources. Now, I also want to make sure that there's something clear here. The people who are coming into the United States are looking for a better life. They have come from very squalid situations, and I can't blame them for wanting to get into the United States to work. And they're hard workers. They typically do a lot of good. I'm not going to denigrate them at all. And in fact, if I was in their shoes, I'd be doing the same thing. And I think one of the problems I have with Trump is he didn't make that clear. He needed to push forward his deportation agendas while not, highlighting or pinpointing or targeting these people are as bad, because they're not bad people for the most part. They're obviously going to be amongst these elements, some undesirables. It happens. But what they find in these counties along the border is that these illegals coming in are sapping resources. They do not speak English. So their kids going into public schools need bilingual teachers. They need extra money for that. They often have to build extra schools for them. And they also sap a lot of other resources, welfare resources and stuff like that, which leaves less money for those who are there legally earning a good income. And I also think that there's a little bit of hesitancy for Hispanics to point their fingers at illegal aliens or undocumented workers, however you want to call them. I'm not into semantics. I really don't care about this stuff. And I think that they want to pinpoint the economy because they really don't want to admit their true feelings about the matter. And that is, they're concerned about the mass influx of undocumented workers coming across the Rio Grande. How else do you explain a 98% Hispanic community or Hispanic county voting Trump? Good luck with that. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. It's not abortion. It's not transgenderism, although I have a feeling that Hispanic communities are not particularly fond of those ideals. Why? They tend to be socially fairly conservative. They're Catholics. They're probably not into transgender in sports and those kind of far left ideals. Now, let's go ahead and watch another one. Okay, here we go. If you want to see how bad things have gotten for the Democrats, all right, this is the percentage of Hispanics that vote for Republicans versus Democrats. And as you can see, it kind of hovers between, well, maybe here's around 33%. It goes almost to 40, drops down to 20, and at most it gains to about 40%. And that was under George W. Bush. Keep in mind, George W. Bush was from Texas. He spoke Spanish, and he had a pretty, I would say, genuine fondness for Hispanic culture. And so Hispanics were actually okay with George W. And you can see it here, 40%. But keep in mind, Trump won 45%. Okay, so he's beaten all of these Republican candidates. Wow, that is truly amazing. And while the Biden economy has not been great, it certainly has been better than a lot of these really bad economies over the years. So I don't think you can blame the economy for it. I think that it is the border crisis that is driving the Hispanic vote here. They really don't like the large influxes of undocumented peoples coming across the river. Another heavy Hispanic county is Webb County in Texas. I think it's 95%. In fact, I think it's the second highest population of Hispanics percentage-wise in Texas.
Well, good Sunday morning, everyone, and thank you for watching Beyond the Headlines. Well, 47 is the new 45. For the second time in the last 8 years, voters send Donald Trump back to the White House as the 47th president of the United States. And in Webb County, a historical shift marked by a red turn. Not everybody saw it coming, but maybe the man himself.
Mr. Trump from Laredo. Mr. Trump. Oh, Laredo. I love Laredo. I'm glad. Go ahead. I'm glad. The mayor is great in Laredo. Yes, we know. Tell him I said that. Great job, Mayor. Thank you.
Listening up. And nearly 10 years later, the feeling was mutual. As the vote continues to come in, Donald Trump appears to be on track to win the popular vote. Not just that, though, current projections suggest that Republicans are likely to secure a majority in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. And in Webb County, a stunning result with historical implications. At the top of the ticket, just over 33,000 Webb County voters cast their ballot for the Republican ticket, capturing just more than 50%. In comparison, Vice President Harris and Tim Walz received just under 32,000 votes, good for a little over 48%. But Donald Trump's win needs some historical and cultural perspective. The last time Webb County voted red in the presidential ticket, when Webb County voted for William Howard Taft in the 1912 presidential election.
Think about this. Webb County, which is way down at the very bottom of Texas, has voted Democrat since the Titanic sank. And for the first time, it's voted Republican. Let that soak in. And I'm going to say it now. If the Democratic Party doesn't get a handle on this, Hispanics could be a solid Republican voting base in this country. And that could spell disaster for the Democratic Party here in the future. Okay, here we have somebody out there is listening, all right? Considering the ad money and the Dems spent on Spanish TV, it's almost a surprise. I don't know how much they spent on Spanish TV, but I have a feeling if they did, the advertisements were probably very condescending because that's what they do. They really have a hard time reaching out to certain populations without making fools of themselves. If you remember, Hillary Clinton, back when she was running against Donald Trump, she made a mention that she carried hot sauce in her purse. An obvious reference to a popular culture thing amongst, I think it was black populations about hot sauce. It's from a lyrics of a song. And the cheapness of such a deal, to make a mention like that, to get the black population going, oh, well, she must be like one of us, because she carries hot sauce in her pocket or in her purse, just like we do in that song. That's the kind of thing they do.
What's something that you always carry with you?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you getting information right now?
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce in my bag, swag?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Now listen, I just want you to know, people are going to see this and say, okay, she's pandering to black people again.
Okay. Is it working?
And it's so disingenuous, but they really have a hard time reaching these populations. Trump reaches them because he just doesn't care. I don't think Trump does a whole lot of work towards trying to reach certain populations. He's just who he is. And to be honest, I think that amongst the Hispanic male populations, they kind of appreciate that. Hispanics will vote for whoever is best for their wallet. Yes, and that is true of almost everybody. And the Democrats don't get that. Okay? They really don't understand that. They think they can pander to the Hispanic population by doing Hispanic kind of things. And the Hispanics are pretty smart people. They see right through that kind of crap, right? Having a Hispanic rapper, and I'll show you a video clip of that here in a moment, at your address is not going to rake in the Hispanic vote. They're not stupid. And there's no other word to describe it. It's called pandering. By the way, in the previous video clip, I was talking about Starr County. That county voted Republican for the first time in its history, 132 years. Think about that. Since Trump came around, it's just grown steadily. I think that they could pull in 60% in the future. Of course, unless Trump really screws up. But here's what one of the most important things I want everybody to come away with, and that is trying to reach Hispanic populations by making fun of or criticizing the Republican Party for its deportation issues. That's a loser. That's a loser. I mean, you're not going to gain much there, and we've seen it. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, so what do the Democrats do? They roll out Fat Joe. He's a Puerto Rican rapper. And again, here's how Democrats operate. We need the Puerto Rican vote. Let's pull out a Puerto Rican rapper. That's what we need to do. Democrats try so hard to be cool. And my response is, you're 50 years old. You're not cool. There's nothing you can do to be cool. Don't try. And Trump doesn't try to be cool. Remember Joe Biden with his aviator sunglasses and dark Brandon and all that? I mean, you're 80 years old. You're not going to be cool. And again, Kamala Harris, she brings in Beyonce. She brings in Taylor Swift. She's trying to come across as hip. And here we have a Puerto Rican rapper. Again, I want to show all the Puerto Ricans that I'm a hip person because I invited this man to the podium. Notice that the seal of the Vice President of the United States is on the podium here. Okay? Again, pandering.
Right? But I got to explain to you. I really want you to feel the moment. I am a sucker for a good laugh. I'm the guy they throw out the movie theater because the movie's too funny and I'm making too much noise. I'm the guy that you can roast me in a comedy club and I will laugh with you all the way out. The other day in Madison Square Garden, that was no joke, ladies and gentlemen. That was no joke. And it was filled with so much hate. Hatred of Jewish people.
Hatred of Jewish people? Okay. Trump could be, he has a lot of weaknesses and he could be criticized for a lot of things. But I don't think hatred of Jewish people is among them. I mean, his daughter is married to a Jew. And I have not heard any anti-Jewish sentiment ever uttered by him. Again, they're trying to go with the fascist Nazi thing. And so he's going to mention the whole anti-Jew thing to try to get that label. This is so disingenuous. And again, Trump has a lot of weaknesses. He has a lot of faults. And I've talked about them many times on my channel. I am not a Trumper. But hatred of Jews is not one of them. And quite frankly, I don't think he has hatred for any ethnic group. I really don't. Again, I'm not a Trumper. I'm not saying he's the greatest dude around. I'm not like a lot of people who just worship the guy. But hatred of racial groups is not one of his deals. I can't think of anything that he has said that I would say, oh yeah, he's anti-Hispanic or he's anti-Black. I just don't think he's like that. But okay, if you disagree with me, that's fine. You're entitled to your wrong opinion. I tend to agree with you. Yeah. Okay.
Hatred of Black people, carving watermelons, calling Puerto Rico an island of garbage. My Latinos, where is your pride?
Okay, here's a clue. Not all non-Puerto Rican Hispanics like Puerto Ricans. Puerto Ricans don't necessarily like Mexicans. Mexicans don't necessarily like Puerto Ricans. They don't necessarily like Cubans. Now, I don't think there's any hatred there, but there is a grudge amongst these populations. You go to Africa, the Tutsis and the Hutus, they didn't get along. The Hutus tried to massacre the Tutsis and killed about 500,000 of them. You can't look at the Hutus and the Tutsis and say, well, they're African. They're the same. They should get along so well, and they probably have a lot of respect for each other. Oh, no, they don't. And to go in and claim that because, a comedian for Trump, not Trump himself, but a comedian made fun of Puerto Rico and therefore Mexicans should be outraged, that ain't going to happen. The Mexicans are probably looking at that going, yeah, well, that's about right. Now, again, these are more grudges. I don't think there's any hatred here, but the idea somehow that you can just take Hispanics, like Cubans and Puerto Ricans and Mexicans and Central Americans and lump them all together and pretend that they're a common voting bloc is a serious mistake. And I'm reminded of a meta-analysis that occurred in the 1960s. This was one of the very first large meta-analyses that occurred in education. Now, a meta-analysis is basically a congealment of a large number of research projects. And so this meta-analysis took all of these research studies and combined them, and they used the letter H, the variable H, to describe Hispanics. So I looked into this, and Hispanics were essentially covering Cubans, Mexicans from the Los Angeles area, and Puerto Ricans and Central Americans. And I'm thinking, you can't take those four populations and just give them the same variable, H. Cubans share almost nothing with Mexicans. They are completely distinct cultures. They don't have the same mores. And to just basically think, well, they're all Hispanics is a classic mistake that the Democratic Party is doing.
I don't know why, but if I'm speaking to some undecided Puerto Ricans, especially in Pennsylvania, what more they got to do to show you who they are? I'm telling you. And the thing about Fat Joe, if you don't know him, he's authentic. He will not sell his soul for nobody in the world.
Oh, I hate it when they refer to themselves in the third person. This is Fat Joe talking. And I've never heard of him. He's a rapper from Puerto Rico. The only rapper I know that's Hispanic is SPM, South Park Mexican, who I think is really good. I'm not a rap fan at all, but I came across his stuff because he did a cover of Wallo Voodoo's Mexican Radio, and I was listening to it. I'm thinking, oh, this is really good. So I started listening to this other stuff, and he's really good. Found it to be quite impressive. Then he got nailed for banging some underage kid. I think he's in prison in Texas somewhere, Houston, I believe. But South Park Mexican, really good stuff. Real Gangsta is a very nice song. And I'll think of another one here in a moment. But at any rate, I've never heard of this guy.
If I tell you Kamala Harris is with us, she's with us. Every single vote matters. Every single vote. And let me tell you something. They've spent billions of dollars in this election. Billions of dollars, wherever you look. Campaign in every state. If you think of how big the United States is.
Kamala Harris has spent billions of dollars. I don't think Trump did. Kamala actually outspent Trump by a whole bunch. But in her advertisements, she claimed that Trump was outspending her and that she needed money. She lied.
You got Arizona, you got California, you got Memphis, I think it's biblical that the vote comes down to the little guys of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia.
Yeah, how'd that work out for you? How'd that work out for you?
Also Latino men who, despite the utter disrespect shown by Trump and his promise to deport some of your mixed status families, most of them voted in a 55% majority to make the deportations happen. Y'all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke and against your own sisters and chose Kamala Harris with 60% of their votes.
Again, going back, she's saying that you voted against your own, well, she said systems, but I think she meant against your own interests. But that's not true. They didn't. They voted for their best interest. They felt that Trump was going to give them the opportunity to move forward economically so that they can put food on the table and take care of their kids, put them through school and stuff. Now, maybe they're wrong. Maybe they made the wrong choice, but that's why they did it. Again, Joy Reid just does not understand that. She really thinks that if you have EZ on the end of your name, Hernandez, Gomez, or whatever, then you should vote Democrat, because Democrats spend a lot of money reaching out to Hispanics with, rappers and celebrities. She thinks that because the Democratic Party reaches out to Hispanics with the big H, all Hispanics, that Hispanics should vote for them. She doesn't get it. Let's see here. How much you got paid for that? He's referring to Fat Joe. That was another problem with the Harris campaign. And I wanted to talk a little bit about where the Democrats made their mistake. And of course, they do this every election cycle. They try to win the vote by appealing to celebrities. And so they pour an enormous amount of money into Beyonce and all of the others, right? Taylor Swift and all that. They just give them gobs of money. They think that is going to win the day for them. But ultimately, I don't think anybody cares about these people. I mean, they may want to go to a Taylor Swift concert, but that doesn't mean they're going to vote Taylor Swift's way. Do they actually think people vote based on skin color or gender? They do. And here's the reason why. And this is what we call projection. This is projection in the real sense, not the projection that you hear bandied around on Twitter. What you hear often with projection is, if I accuse somebody of that which I am, that's projection. That's not the case. Projection is the inability to understand somebody else's point of view because you think everybody shares that point of view. So because they think race is so important to them, and they've built careers on it. Joy Reid has built a career on race. If racial division disappeared, she'd be out of work. Okay, so racial division, identity politics are everything to her. She filters everything according to that. If you see a white person going up against a black person in a political race and the white person wins, she automatically thinks it's because of racism. She's not going to look into why. Maybe the black person was accused of heinous crimes. She's not going to look into that because in her mind, race decides it. White person versus black person, the black person should have won. And the white person only won because of racism. And in their mind, that's how they think. And therefore, it's hard for them to think that others don't think like that. And so when she sees these results coming in that show that Trump is in the lead, the only thing that she can think of is that it's because of racism. And she truly believes that. Do they actually think people vote based on skin color? So they really do think that people vote based on skin color because they do. And they cannot imagine a person not being like that. The big problem that they have, and Joy Reid has, and all of them have, is that how did Barack Obama win? Remember, Trump only won because, he's white. Kamala Harris is a black woman. And the racism, she's black. Well, all those white voters out there, she's black. They're not going to vote for her. But they have a hard time explaining why Barack Obama won. So clearly, a majority of the American population is willing to vote for a black person if they feel it's the right person. But you'll never get that across to her.
Critical to the now president-elect's win. And the number one issue driving that shift, the economy, according to exit polls. NBC's David Noriega spoke with a family in Battleground, Nevada about why Latino voters shifted so significantly toward Mr. Trump and why his victory is giving them hope for a better future.
Again, and this is just a hypothesis on my end, but I think that when Hispanics say it's the economy, I really do think that a lot of them really want to mention the immigration issue, and they're just a little bit embarrassed to bring it up. I have a feeling that immigration is a much bigger part of the deal. Okay, let's watch.
No, not right now. Mario and Mireya Alvarez found the American dream in Las Vegas.
Would you like some coffee?
They came to the U.S. from Mexico and Guatemala in the 80s. With his job in a supermarket and her job in a casino, they bought a house and raised 3 children. Now they wonder if their kids and grandkids will inherit that dream. Is it still possible to do that for the younger generation?
That's my main question out right now. What's going to happen to our new generation? Nowadays,
at this point, you think, well, they voted for Kamala Harris because the deportation issue, right? Listen up.
They're not even able to move out of their houses anymore because everything is so expensive.
Life wasn't expensive as it is right now. First place,
we first met Mario back in February when he.
Okay, expensive. He's talking about inflation. It's a problem for him. Kind of like it is a problem for most normal human beings, because ultimately they are normal human beings. They have the same concerns that everybody else has. And they see themselves as Americans first and Latinos second.
He was seriously considering a vote for Donald Trump. He was undecided with previous votes for George W. Bush, Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Biden. At the last minute, he broke for Kamala Harris. But today, he's not upset about the results.
I'm kind of like more happy than upset. Why? Because Donald Trump is going to help the country with the economy.
The whole household is happy. Mireya and their 29-year-old son, Mario Jr., did vote for Trump.
Initially, I would say I did not agree with him. And then I started seeing that he was not afraid to speak his mind. And I noticed that he was not scared to say what he felt, regardless of what people would say. And I think I respect that about him.
So you liked his kind of brashness?
Yeah, I would say yes.
They're not alone. Across the country, Donald Trump made huge inroads with Latino voters. According to NBC exit polls, 55% of Latino men nationwide voted for Trump, a 19-point jump from 2020.
19-point jump in 4 years. What's the difference? What came about in the last 4 years? Well, you might think, transgender thing. Yeah, but immigration, in my opinion, is it. I don't think the economy is so bad that you would see a 19-point jump in 4 years. I'm sorry. I think it's immigration.
Among Latina women like Mireya, an 8-point gain. And while Vice President Harris won a slight majority of the Latino vote overall, Trump increased his support 14 points from the last election. The top issue among Latino voters, like it is for the Alvarez family, the economy, with immigration a distant fourth. Mario and Mireya both crossed the border illegally as teenagers, but became citizens under President Ronald Reagan's amnesty.
Now, this is an important thing, and that is they came over illegally. They were given amnesty by Ronald Reagan, and they managed to turn that into a positive deal. They went out and they got jobs, and they even have their own businesses and stuff like that. And this is the reason why I'm a little bit concerned about the whole mass deportation deal. I am fully in favor of, first of all, let's find out the undesirables. Let's uncover them and get them out of the country. But after that, I think we have to make some hard decisions, because a lot of immigrants that come into this country end up doing great things. And in fact, it would be argued that America is an immigrant country. I think there has to be some serious discussion about this. My concern about Trump, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not a Trumper, is that he tends to see things in black and white. And I'm not sure he's going to see that, but we'll see.
They see themselves as different from migrants crossing the border today. In what way do you think they're different?
The people that are coming here are the criminals, you know, the ones that did something bad in their country. They're running away from their law.
Despite having close family members who are undocumented,
Migrant invasion.
they don't believe they'll end up in Trump's crosshairs. When you hear Trump promise mass deportations, do you worry about them?
Yes and no, because the ones that I know, they're doing good. They're not breaking any law.
I believe he's going to start deporting all the bad people.
Trump won over the Alvarez family, and many like them. Whether the economy improves and who exactly he chooses to deport may determine if he keeps them.
My family is Latino, and a lot of them are immigrants. But at the end of the day, we're American.
You heard from them, and their idea is that Trump is going to go after the bad people first. He's going to get them deported out, talking about Venezuelan gangs, for example. And then the people who have come here and are doing really well, they're not breaking laws, and they're adding to the, let's say, the progress of the country, that they're going to be safe. To them, that they think that Trump is going to abide by those. And I hope that Trump does. Keep in mind, again, the people coming into the country are not necessarily bad people. A lot of them here are just coming because they're looking for a better life, and they're trying to find money for their family. So I think denigrating them is not necessarily useful. However, amongst them are a lot of bad people. And I think that there has to be a way to, find them. And of course, once they break the law and they come into custody, at that point, they have identified themselves as really bad people. And I have no issue with deporting them at all. I doubt that family ever received a single government benefit. They don't sound like it, but maybe, you don't know. The older Hispanics, the amnesty recipients, are a lot like the early European immigrants. Too much pride to ask for freebies. And I agree with that. I mean, I know a lot of these Hispanic families, and a lot of them would never accept freebies, as far as I can tell. Now, my idea for immigration reform was always that, I go back to what was occurring in like the 1940s. We have crops that need to be picked. We have certain jobs that need to be done. And I'm not going to go the Democratic way of saying, well, if you're Hispanic, you must be washing toilets or something like that. That's the kind of stereotyping that the Democratic Party does. But I will say that there is a need in this country for a certain amount of farm labor and other labor, what we might call lower blue-collar labor. I have no issue with allowing a certain number of they wouldn't be illegal, they'd be legal immigrants to cross the river and come in and do that work. We pay them, but then they have to go back. So their families stay, they come over, they do their work, we pay them good money. And by good money, I mean in comparison to what they would get in Mexico. And then they go back across the border to their families. And then they wait out for the next round. So when the next farming season comes out, they come back. And in other words, it's very much like a visa. And I think such a deal could be worked out. Unfortunately, both sides are so polarized, they would never come to that agreement. We need cheap labor. They can provide it. But we also know the downside of open borders. So can there be a way to regulate this? And there should be. We give them the money, they go back. I really, truly believe, however, that we would need some sort of assurances from the country of Mexico that when they get off the bus, they're not going to get robbed, because they're going to be coming back into the country with money, and they're going to be prime victims of all kinds of gang activity. We would want some assurances from the country of Mexico that, hey, we're going to give them money, but you need to secure their safety when they come back. And I think it's important to us that we do that. I don't really believe that it should be just Mexico's problem, because Mexico, in my opinion, will simply drop the ball on that. But no, I think that if we regulate it, bring in enough labor to do what we need to have done, give them the money so they can go back and take care of their families every 6 months, or they can come back. I don't have any problem with that. But Again, that is a middle ground that probably is now untenable. There is a program for that. Okay, well, maybe I'm a little bit ignorant there. I know they used to have one where they would set up migrant camps and they would bring in the migrants from south of the border and they would set them up. And you could have doctors there, you could have nurses to take care of them, security, to make sure that people don't get robbed and stuff like that. They're most likely going to get robbed from the outside, but you can set up security for them and you can make sure that they're taken care of and that they make money and they go back to Mexico and take care of their families. What's the problem with that? GEI? Okay, I'm not familiar with it. I'll have to check that out. Well, it may be expensive, but if you're getting productivity out of them, then it may be worth it. Okay, so keep in mind their wages are being paid by their employer, so that's not it. I don't know what the expense is. The transportation, the security, the camps or something. I don't know what that is. Okay, yeah, that'd be one option. Absolutely. I'm assuming that they have such bank accounts. I mean, I don't know what the situation is like south of the border. I've only been to Matamoros in just across the river from not Harlingen, Brownsville. That's the only time I've ever been into Mexico.
Either. Let me ask you both. Who did you vote for in 2020?
Joe Biden. I vote for Joe Biden.
And in 2024?
Donald Trump. I changed to Donald Trump that year.
Why did you choose Trump this time?
For me, security, immigration, this situation with immigration is out of control.
Alejandro Vanderhoek and Uber Figueroa are both registered Democrats, but say a turning point was when Republican governors like Greg Abbott of Texas started busing migrants up north to cities like New York.
Greg Abbott is a genius. I mean, okay, he's from Texas. I'm from Oklahoma. Obviously, I have a grudge against Texans in general, but I'll have to give it up to Greg Abbott. That was brilliant. Now, if he would just start shipping them into Los Angeles, that would be awesome.
These gangs that come from the border. I came from Jackson Heights. Back in 2017 and 2016, even 2018, it was really quiet neighborhood. Not so much after 2020. For me, it's number one, economy.
What would you like to have heard that perhaps would have swayed you back into the party?
Oh, they were not consistent. I think they were just selling. Yes, I know Trump is not an easy person to adore, but I think he's very just blunt.
You hope he keeps his word.
He had 4 years to show he can do whatever he say, improve the country.
So in their mind, at least the guy on the right, it's immigration, especially the importation of violent elements. In his mind, if Trump can get rid of those violent elements, deport them, he's good. Well, okay, the H-2B, that's that visa. I'm not familiar with it, so I'm not sure where the expense is, but okay, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, but I'm not sure. Okay, going back to the H-2B, I don't think that these migrant farm workers are eligible for it. If I recall, the H-2B requires a certain self-sufficiency. I could be wrong. I don't know much about it, but that would be possibly the solution for all this. There's got to be some sort of middle ground solution. I don't think that anybody's looking for it. I do think, however, that the Democratic Party is really screwed up here. I think ultimately they're the racist ones because, again, they stereotype the Hispanic communities that are quite diverse into the same, catch mold. And I just think that's inexcusable. And it explains why they're losing so badly.